Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. This is Jennifer McGuire. Now today's card is a super fun surprise fold-out card. From the outside, the card looks normal, but when you open it up, you have these two panels that separate with the fold-out hearts between. Now this can be done with a variety of die shapes. You don't have to do heart, and there aren't any specialty tools required. Let's get started by doing that heart background first. I have a piece of white cardstock here that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I'm sticking it onto a sticky mat. Any type of sticky mat is helpful here. If you do not have a sticky mat, you could also use temporary tape to hold the stencils in place over the cardstock. Now what I chose to do here is press my cardstock up close to that top left corner. And then I will place the first stencil from the Simon Says Stamp Layering Hearts stencil set right up against the left corner. See how it's lined up there on the top left? That way I know that every time if I put my stencil in that top corner, it'll line up with that cardstock beneath. Now there are lots of large open hearts on this first stencil, and I'm going to use different colors of inks for different hearts. If you want to save time, you could do all of the hearts the same color. I'm starting out with a very soft pink ink from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm doing a couple hearts with that color, and then I will move on to a yellow color. You could use absolutely any inks that you want to here, but I am going light-handed because this is a layering stencil set, so the next stencil will want to have a little bit darker for that layered look. I'm using Post-it notes to kind of mask off different areas so that I can get each of the hearts a different color. If you have smaller blending brushes, that's definitely helpful here, as you can make sure that the color stays where you want it. Now this will take some extra time to do each of these hearts different colors. Again, you could save a lot of time by doing one color over the whole stencil. However, this is really the focal point on the front of my card, this colorful inked background. And so I don't mind putting a little extra time into it. All I'm going to do is add a die cut and stamped heart on top. So putting the time into this is definitely worth it to me. So after I've covered that first stencil, I'm going to leave my cardstock where it is on that sticky mat, and I'll come in with the second stencil, and I'll line that up with that top left corner. That way I know it'll line up nicely with the inking we've already done. Now this one has slightly smaller hearts, so it's easier to go over each of the hearts with a different color. I'm using my Simon Says Stamp blending brushes today because I really like the size of these, but if you have smaller blending brushes, as I mentioned, it is helpful to get into those smaller areas. But I wanted to demonstrate there is absolutely no need to have a variety of brush sizes. One medium size like this can do the trick. You just might need to use masking for smaller areas. All right, now it's time for the third stencil. This one does super tiny hearts here, and I'm using all of the same colors as I have over the other stencils. I'm doing kind of a light application of color, so I have a mix of these colors all over the background. Sometimes I'll need to use that Post-it note to mask off areas so I can be sure to keep a nice clean look. Okay, so now we are in with the next stencil that does layering on top of the biggest hearts that we started with. Because this is one of the layering stencils, I will go darker with the color. You can either go heavier with the same exact color of ink that you have below it, or you can reach for a darker ink pad of the same color. Totally up to you. If you're limited on the number of inks you have, definitely do lighter amount of one color for the first layer and heavier amount for the second. But if you have light and dark of the same color, you can use those two pads. So here you can see I'm putting a heavier amount of pink onto that light pink heart that's behind it. And then there are these tiny little hearts to fill in also. Now you can see with Post-it notes, you can just move them around and reuse them over and over. If you don't have Post-it notes, you could also use some temporary tape or even printer paper. You can lay those down to kind of mask off the other areas. But again, remember, this layering stencil set could be done very quickly by doing the same color over the entire stencil. I'm just looking for a very colorful background. You can see how having this sticky mat is very helpful in that it holds my cardstock in the same place every time. And then I can put each of the layering stencils into that top corner, and I know they will always line up. If you don't have a sticky mat, you can use tape, as I had mentioned earlier, or start in the top corner of a bigger piece of cardstock. And every time, line up your stencil with that same top corner, and then trim off all of the excess when you're done. Totally up to you, but you can see sticky mats are great not just for inside stamping tools, but they're very helpful for using with stencils, as I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm continuing on with the other layering stencils in the set. I love the layered look and the full background that you get with different size hearts. All right, so once I have inked over all of the layering stencils, I can peel it off of my sticky mat and look at that fun, colorful background. Now, I love the look of this, but there's a lot of white space around those hearts, and I want it to be a little more continuous looking on the background. So I'm going to stamp on top of all of those hearts to really pull it all together. My favorite type of background stamp to do just this, to kind of pull a background together, is a text background stamp. So I chose the Simon Says Stamp Friendship Text Cling Stamp. When I got it out of my stash, I realized that last time I used it, I didn't clean it very well. In fact, I rarely clean my stamps until I need to, as I'm doing here. I thought I'd show you how I clean my stamps. I spray it with Hero Arts Ultra Clean, and then I use the Hero Arts scrubber to scrub that in really good, and that will remove a lot of the ink, kind of loosen it up, clean it off nicely. This does work with clear stamps also. And then I just take a wet cloth, you could use a baby wipe if you want to, and wipe away that excess ink and that cleaning fluid. Then I use a dry cloth to wipe that and look at how clean our stamp is. Now remember, a dirty stamp is a love stamp. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. Now I have that sticky mat in my MISTI stamping tool here. You can see it over there on the left-hand side. And I have my cling stamp on the door on the right-hand side. I'm lining up my heart panel with the text on the stamp. And then I will close my MISTI upside down on it. That sticky mat will grab a hold of the panel and hold it in place. Now I know that when I ink up and stamp with the stamp, the text lines will be straight on the background. I chose to stamp this with Honeybee Silver Metallic ink. This is my current favorite silver metallic ink. I love the shine that it gives and that it has a lot of ink in it, so you get a crisp result. So I stamp that over my hearts and over my background. I'll now remove that from the sticky mat and look at that silver shine of the text. This kind of pulls the whole background together. And boy, do I love that silver shine. Since this is a pigment ink that stays wet for a bit, I do recommend heat setting it or giving it time to dry. For that die cut heart on the front of our card and the hearts on the inside, I'm using the new Simon Says Stamp Nested Rounded Hearts die set, although you could use any solid shape such as circle, rectangle, square, heart, star, whatever you want. I need to cut these dies apart, and I thought I'd show you the process I do. I've done this in videos before, but it's always good to share more than once. I use the Hero Arts die clippers or snippers, whatever you want to call them. You could use any jewelry snippers too, but I like these Hero Arts ones a lot. I first cut the main die apart. So here you can see me cut one of the large dies out. Now the smaller dies all have these tiny little pieces that stick off. Instead of snipping these off by pressing firmly with my snippers, I just clamp the little piece of metal that sticks off, just kind of gently, and then I bend it back and forth. And that keeps that little piece of metal from flying across the room. Instead, it'll fall right into that baby wipe that I have underneath me. Then once I'm done clipping all those little tiny pieces of metal off, I can fold this baby wipe up and put it in my trash can safely. Now I have all of my heart dies ready to go. Now these hearts can be used on their own, or you can use them with this 6x8 stamp set from Simon Says Stamp called From the Heart Messages. You can see how these are great greetings that fill that heart shape. And they're designed to go with this die set. So again, you can buy them together or separately and use them either way. Now I will be using several sentiments from the set and another, which I'll show you later on. All right, let's do that heart for the front of our card. I am stamping on a silver metallic cardstock from Gina K Designs. It's a brushed silver. Any kind of cardstock would work here. I just like the light, subtle metallic look of this. I use my anti-static powder tool, and now I'm stamping one of these large heart sentiments from the stamp set that I just showed you with Altenew black pigment ink. Now I am stamping on a specialty cardstock, so it doesn't really want to stamp super well. If I stamped this on regular white cardstock, it would have been absolutely beautiful. And then I add clear embossing powder and we would have what looks like a black heat embossed image. But since I'm stamping on a specialty cardstock with black pigment ink, it didn't want to be super solid. So I decided to change my method up here. Instead of starting over, I'm going to reheat emboss on top of what I've already done. So I'm using my anti-static powder tool again, and this time I'm stamping with VersaMark ink. I could have used the black pigment ink again, it really doesn't matter. And I'm stamping right on top of the heat embossing that we've already done. This time I'm using black embossing powder. Now I usually avoid black embossing powder. It can be kind of finicky to use, but in this case, because I'm using a specialty cardstock, I decided it was best to use the black embossing powder. If I was doing this on just regular cardstock, once again, I would use my black pigment ink from Altenew and clear embossing powder and get a beautiful black embossed image. But the specialty powder or specialty paper was a little tricky, so I had to use the black embossing powder. Now I will use the coordinating heart die to cut it out from that nested rounded hearts die set that I showed you earlier. Now you'll notice I also have below that a heart where I white heat embossed the sentiment. I wasn't really sure which I wanted to use, but I decided to go with the black heat emboss so the sentiment would stand out even more. Now, although I made that mistake where I had to double up my layers of embossing powder, that's okay, because I end up with more dimension to my embossing. Doubling up embossing powder layers is always a great way to make your sentiment stand out even more and have dimension. Now let's do the fold-out hearts for inside of the card. To do this, you need a piece of cardstock that's a bit bigger. It doesn't really matter how big, and we're going to fold this in half. So I'm using my Altenew scoring board, but whatever scoring tool you have should work. You could even just free fold it, but I really recommend a scoreboard. It's the best way to get a nice fold. So I'll fold this in half and then reinforce it with my bone folder. Now I have another piece of cardstock the same because we're going to need a few pieces. You'll see as we go. This one's a scrap, it doesn't matter. I'm folding it in half. You just need that nice fold line. Now I'm taking a medium size heart and I am lining it up so that the edge of the heart on the left-hand side hangs off the edge of the folded cardstock just a tiny bit. So you'll see that the edge of my die on that left-hand side is hanging off the folded edge of our cardstock just a little bit. I'll flip it over. You can see the cutting edge is hanging off a bit. I will then run this through my die cut machine. And once I've done that, we'll end up with like this little mini card where that side of the heart will be connected. Now, if you have a circle, you can have the little side of the circle hanging off. If you have a star, have the tip hanging off. You just want a little bit there where it hangs off, and that will create this little folded die cut shape. So let me open this up here and look at that. Absolutely perfect. Very easy way to create a mini card. But I'll be using this piece inside of our card for that pop-up fold-out feature. Now let's do the same thing again. I am lining up my heart die so that the left edge of my heart hangs off the folded edge of the cardstock. You can see it's hanging off a little bit there. Run it through my die cut machine, and there we have another little mini folded heart. Now we need a third one here. So I have that other piece of folded cardstock. You could do different colors for each of these. I did the same silver cardstock for each. Now this time I'm allowing the right hand edge to hang off there. It really doesn't matter because you can fold your cardstock either way once it's die cut, but you can see the edge is hanging off. I'll run that through my die cut machine, and now we have these three little mini hearts. We're going to glue these together to connect them to create that fold-out surprise on the inside of our card. There are a few different ways you can connect these together, but this is what I found to be the easiest. I opened up 2 of my little mini heart cards, so you can see those are open there. And then the third one will get glued behind those to connect those middle hearts together. So I have that third one up there. And watch, I'm going to overlap over here on the left, and then I'll overlap here on the right. And this will give me 4 panels that'll fold out nicely inside of our card. So we're going to glue them together this way, but first we need to do some heat embossing, add our sentiments onto those hearts. You can see I have 4 hearts here with 4 different sentiments. 2 are from the Heart Messages stamp set that I showed you earlier, and 2 are from one of my favorite new stamp sets. I'm so excited about this. It's from Simon Says Stamp and CZ Design. It's called Hi There Greeting. I love the greetings in here. The styles are classic. There's lots of things included. And there are coordinating dies to cut out many of these sentiments. Now I'm going to use this set briefly in this video. However, in my next video, that'll be up in a couple days, I'll show you much more you can do with these stamp sets, and I'll show you a peek at those cards later in this video. But I love the classic style of these and how many sentiments are included. So now I need to plan which sentiment will go on each of these hearts that'll be in the fold out portion on the inside of our card. So I'm choosing a couple sentiments from the set I just showed you and a couple from the Heart Messages set that I showed you earlier. And you can see me laying them out here. To match the front of our card, I decided to also do black heat embossing of these sentiments. So I've put them into my MISTI stamping tool. This time, I'm going to skip that black pigment ink with clear ink. I found out that didn't really work on the specialty cardstock as well. So I just stamped my sentiment with VersaMark ink. You could use black pigment ink if you want. And then I put black embossing powder on top of it. Then I'll heat set that, and I'll do that with the other 2 sentiments on the other folded heart piece. By the way, I mentioned earlier that black embossing powder can be a little finicky. That's because if it sticks somewhere you don't want it, it really shows up. It's black, right? So just be sure to use a generous amount of anti-static powder tool, and you should be okay. Now let's connect these hearts together. I have the 3rd folded heart there, and on that left heart, I'll put some strong adhesive. I'm using Gina K Connect liquid adhesive, and I'll overlap this heart on the right-hand side of our first piece. And you can see already how it's going to fold and open very easily to go on the inside of our card. Now we need to put liquid adhesive or something strong on this other open heart to connect the other sentiment heart piece. So I'll put some liquid adhesive there. I'll line up this Miss You heart right on top, and then I will fold it all closed and put something heavy on it while it dries, making sure all those hearts line up nicely. And look at how it's going to open and close. Again, I'll put something heavy on it while it dries. While that sits for a moment, I have our heart and stamped panel that I've trimmed down slightly, and I'm gluing that on to the front of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white panel. I'm layering this panel up so it's nice and strong because this will serve as the front panel of this fold-out card. We want it to be strong. I also doubled up 2 white cardstock pieces for the back panel of our card. I'm not sure I really needed to do that, but I wasn't sure at the time, so I thought it would be good to double it up. These will serve as the front and the back of our card. So I'm going to flip them over so they open up kind of like a card. So that's the front of our card. On the left is the back of our card. So I'm flipping them over. So this is almost like you're looking at the inside of a card. It's just not connected in the middle. Instead, we're using these fold-out hearts to connect in the middle. So I'll put liquid adhesive, something super strong. You could use double-sided tape here, and put adhesive all over back of the first heart panel. And I'm placing that on the back of our card front panel, and I'm positioning it there at the top center. So you can see I have it positioned at the top center there. Make sure that that has a little bit of time to dry and be secure. Then I'll put strong adhesive on the back of this heart flap, and I'll take the back of our card and line it up on top, making sure it lines up with the front panel of our card. And I'll put something heavy on it and give it some time to dry. Once it's dry, you can take this card and open it up like a regular card, but the card panels kind of come apart and you have that fold out feature on the inside. And believe it or not, this will stand up nicely on display and you have those additional sentiments on the inside. This is a fun alternative to a regular opening card and something extra special you can do with a variety of shapes. Now, I used heart dies, but you could definitely use other basic shapes too. Now for the front of our card, I have that heat emboss sentiment, and I die cut a few additional hearts to glue behind it so it has some dimension to pop it up. I'll put something heavy on that while it dries, and then I use the Simon Says Stamp Mini Hearts Party Die to die cut a few silver hearts that I could glue onto the background. I used 3 different sizes of small hearts from that die, and I layered them up so that they would match nicely with that silver heart that has the sentiment. So here is a look at our completed card. It looks like a regular card from the front. We have that layered heat embossing on the silver heart. We also have that silver text stamping over those colorful stenciled hearts. And also those little silver hearts that I layered in the background. Now when you open this card, you open it like you would a normal card. The card comes apart, allowing that fold out heart feature to show. This is just a fun way to create something a little unexpected, a little special, and it looks really cool standing up on display. I do plan to try creating this card using a large balloon die. So it has a balloon on the front and then 4 balloons that fold out in the center, maybe little strings hanging from it. There are many different shapes you could use for this fold out surprise card design. Now, before we go, I wanted to show you a few other cards that'll be coming up in my next video. These are all products from this new Simon Says Stamp release. So just a little peek into my next video. I will link below to this entire collection. I think some of it will sell out fast, but in this video, I'm sharing lots of ideas for using heat embossing for special looks, kind of like that layered heat embossing that we did on the front of our heart. All right, if you're interested in the supplies that I used today, I have them linked below in my YouTube description. And if you are interested in other ideas, I'll link to a couple other videos here. I appreciate you spending this time with me and have a wonderful day.